Hello and welcome to the Speakertunity Show. I am your host, Michael Whitehouse, the guy who knows the guy, and I am super excited to be talking with Dan Miller today. He runs 48 Days to, help me out with this, 48 Days to what?
The work you love.
There you go. 48 Days to the work you love. My mind suddenly went blank as I was saying what you did. But yeah, when I found this, I was so excited because with the success I've had in my business, I'm trying to go back to my friends who are stuck in their dead-end jobs and barely scraping by and dispirited and be like, hey, I'm no expert, but I've gotten myself here and let me share what I know and get you there. And I'm looking at Dan's site, listening to his podcast. I'm like, oh my God, it's all the resources that I need to share right there with that kind of mission. So welcome, Dan. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, thanks. Hey, I'm honored to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Great. So how did you get into this place of helping people find the work they love?
It kind of showed up. It wasn't a strategic move on my part. It just kind of showed up because I just was helping people, having conversations. But I've always been an entrepreneur. So I've always seen opportunities behind every bush and I've never had a real job, never had a job with a paycheck. I've always just followed ideas. So a few years ago, actually, when I was in my mid 40s, they asked me to teach at this church we were going to, just teach a class on career life transition, just these inevitable changes that come up that we have to deal with. And I did that. And the funny thing in that, Michael, I expected to have, the 18-year-old who was wondering what to major in college, or the 23-year-old who just got out and realized, hey, it's not as easy to get, Mercedes in the driveway and a white picket fence as they told me it was going to be. Something's wrong here. Well, I had a few of those, but what surprised me in that Sunday school class was I had doctors and dentists and chiropractors and pastors and engineers and accountants. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? I'm like, well, everybody sees me as doing okay, and I am, but I don't think this is it. I think there's something more. It's that spot that I moved into where there was such an amazing opportunity. And so that's what I've spent the last 20 years now doing, is that helping people who may be 42 years old, advanced degree, doing used to income, extraordinary income, but they're saying, you know what? I don't think this is it. So, and I wasn't looking for a new business. Again, being an entrepreneur, I had plenty of things going on, but then there were so many requests. I just kind of backed into it and finally started making, I put together a little 3-ring binder. I had a couple cassette wells in there back in the day. And then I went to a conference with Mark Victor Hansen, co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and he talked about selling books. And I came back in the next 30 months, I sold over $2 million worth of that little 3-ring binder. Now, you know what? There's apparently a need here. I'm just going to move into this space. So it wasn't something I was looking for. Yeah. And it's one of those things too. You think, being an authors don't make any money. Why would I choose that? But if it's your passion, if it's a fit, then just do things that other authors aren't. Be creative in that space, and you can still knock it out of the park.
Absolutely. And the thing with authors, I wrote this book, The Guy Who Knows the Guy. I've sold like 80 copies of it and made about $40,000 off it. And I don't sell them for $500 a piece, but once you have a book, that's a tool. That's a way to get in. Each piece goes in there. My podcast, I run podcasts. I don't get any sponsorship money or anything like that, but I meet people on there who turn into clients or who make connections or who give me an idea that becomes my next business or whatever. So, every piece gets closer. When did you say you got started with us?
I started when I was 42 years old. So that was a long time ago. Yeah. So I've been doing this. I've been doing this over 30 years.
Okay. Yeah.
In that space. Prior to that, I had health and fitness centers. I had auto accessories business. I just like ideas. And this is in that information space that I hadn't explored prior. But once I discovered it, it's like, oh my gosh, you can make money while you're asleep. You can do something once, like write a book and get paid, over and over and over again. And how cool is that? So it really spoiled me once I discovered this kind of business.
Well, I think what's interesting is, we're talking about you're doing this back in the 90s, that nowadays everything being online, there's all these online opportunities. I think a lot of people are thinking, well, those opportunities exist, but that's a new thing. And that, back then people still had their pensions, people still had good jobs. And now people the safe path is getting narrower and narrower. back then you may have had people be like, yeah, I could retire from here. I'll probably be okay, but I'm not feeling it. Whereas now people are like, I just got laid off for the 6th time. I'm 41 years old. Like, this safe path is feeling a little rickety. So even the safe path isn't safe.
Yeah, that old American dream model has really been broken. And frankly, I think it's a good thing, because a lot of people back then would get out of school, get a job, tolerate it. It's like taking your lunchbox off the salt mine every morning, tolerate it for 35 years, hopefully have a little nest egg so they could quit that stinking job and not have to do anything. Well, that's a model that's not even appealing to millennials and Gen Xers. Are you kidding me? That's desirable. I want to enjoy life now. I want to do something meaningful. I want to do something that changes the world, something noble now, not wait until then. So it's changed that whole model. And also, of course, the poignant part is, if you find something, create something that you really do enjoy, retirement loses its appeal. So 65 can come and go, and you just keep doing it, not because you're just trying to accumulate more financially even, but because you really are doing something that has purpose to it. And that's the key.
Absolutely. But my mother the other day was asking me, because my business basically started with the pandemic. She says, are you saving money? Are you putting money away? Because you want to be ready to retire. And I said, well, if I retired, what would I want to do with my time? Well, I'd probably want to, do something where I could meet interesting people, have interesting conversations, maybe travel, go to some events where some interesting people are gathering, do some writing, maybe do
a podcast,
some videos, some podcasts. Wait, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm not going to retire. Why would I stop doing this? This is the business I've built. So I mean, I want to have savings. So if I, get hit by a bus and can't talk anymore or whatever, I need to prepare for the unexpected. But like, turning 65, 70, 75, I don't see why I wouldn't be doing this 35 years from now.
Well, you're talking to a guy who's 75, and I'm planning out the next 25 years. The things I want to do. I've got a book that's being published right now, being printed in China, because it's done some unique things in that, and 2 more manuscripts I'm working on. But we're building an online community. My mastermind is thriving. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing the same things I hope to be doing 25 years from now.
Absolutely. Now, so one thing I want to mention, of course, I understand this, you understand this, and other people might be watching this and be like, all right, yeah, sure. So you guys got this, but you guys are lucky. You're white, you're male, you got all these advantages, but what about me? I can't do that. I don't have those opportunities. I, in fact, just have this conversation. So let's say they don't have credentials. Maybe they went to college, maybe they didn't, what a college degree is worth these days. They're working some mediocre job that they can get a job in, but they don't see any other opportunity. They're like, I don't know how to get it. I don't have any control of what's going on. What do you say to that person who doesn't seem to have any prospects?
Well, they need to think a little differently. They need to think creatively. And people say, well, I'm not creative. Well, you can be. It's that reticular activator. Once you put your mind to it, once you expect ideas, you'd be surprised how readily they come. But I encourage people, you ought to be able to make a list of 20 things you could do, 20 ways you could make money without having a job. If you do that, you're never going to be vulnerable to what happens in the economy or who's in the White House or any of that at all. Inflation, you're never going to be vulnerable. But there's just too many opportunities to just get in the game in unique ways. If you're doing something on your own and gas prices go up, you adjust your prices a little bit on your speaking fee or your book. We can adapt really quickly. I mean, we as entrepreneurs, we eat change for breakfast, bring it on. So, but a person has to look inward. I tell people 85% of the process of having a confidence of new direction comes from looking inward. So what are your unique skills and abilities? What is it you do well that has value? And not only what you can do, but what you enjoy doing. And then secondly, how do you relate to other people? What are your personality traits? What kind of environments are you most comfortable in? How do you talk to other people? How do you manage, persuade, sell? And then the third area is, what are those recurring values, dreams, and passions? If you understand those things about yourself, then you've got a clear focus. Then you ought to be able to identify easily multiple things you could do in work that would blend those. But most people reverse that. They go get a job first. and then try to make their life work around that. That's a really painful process and very short-term solution to anything. Look
Yes.
inward first, get a clear focus, and the world is your oyster, because then you can go out with your head held high and say, this is what I do. This is where I have value. And if you want to create something on your own, write a book, do a podcast, start speaking, boom, you can do that because you now know what your core message is, what it is you have a value that you can share with the world.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of my story is I kept going to get, I started a business out of college. I didn't make any money. So I'm like, let me go the safe path. I got a job. Of course, I got mediocre sales jobs, selling cars and insurance. And that was my safe path because I'm obviously not good at that. And just went from one to the other. But the job was always first. Like, that's my main thing. How do I make the job work? And it's about changing the question. How do I make my life work? And it was a pandemic that really shook it up enough for me to focus on that. But it's how do I make my life work around that? And something interesting that I've seen that I think holds some people back, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is if you're broke or you're just getting by and all your friends are just getting by and you have skills that could be worth $1,000, you've got great interior design skills, you're a great writer, whatever, but all your friends are broke. And so they're like, $1,000, no one will ever pay $1,000 for anything. And so you don't realize that there is an audience who can pay if you can find them. And that mindset shift. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, how to create that mindset shift.
Well, and it's not just a matter of only serving people who are already wealthy. I mean, if you want to work with moms who are coming off welfare, I mean, that's an honorable thing to do, and you can do that. But obviously, you aren't going to charge $200 a session for coaching in that audience. You may charge $20 and work with them, but then you leverage what it is you're doing, just like a speaker is going to do. So you may have a book that's available for $9.95. You may have a white paper that you do. You may have a Saturday morning seminar that you can take people through. You may start an online community for moms like that, where you charge $10 a month, and all of a sudden you get 3,000 moms that are in there. That's $30,000 a month. So there are ways to leverage, no matter who it is that your audience is. It's not a matter of just finding, the Elon Musk and the Richard Bransons of the world because they get money. Not at all. You can serve in any way that you want to if you're then creative about how you allow people to experience your area of expertise.
I love that. It's always good to get called out as wrong by the best. Because I've been thinking that way of like, find people who have money and serve them, which is what my business is built around. And then I'm able to help my friends and not have to charge them because I make my money from wealthy connections. But that's something I hadn't really thought about is, 1,000 times 10 is the same as 10 times 1,000.
That's exactly right. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really good thought.
I try to have a full range of things. So I've got audios, for $8 you can download, and ebooks. We've got things for $18, and we've got physical books and all that. We do have live events. We've got seminar that somebody can walk through. The 48-day seminar, it's a 6-week process to walk through. It's $297. Well, that's kind of my core message, and tons and tons of people go through that. Then we have an online community that's $48 a month, and people get involved in that. So again, the multiples get pretty interesting. You get 1,000 people in there. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yep. And then I have a mastermind. That's $1,000 a month. Then I have an investment group, Eagles Innovation Group, where people put in, we have a lot of fun with this. People put in $48,000. You can see kind of a pattern here, and the 48 keeps showing up. Yep. People put in $48,000. And then we look for businesses to invest in, where we as investors not only are looking for a financial return, but we also take active positions in those companies to help them grow the company. So I've got a wide array of things that I do that are all based around my core message in my book, 48 Days to the Work You Love. But I don't just sit by the mailbox waiting on those royalty checks as an author. That's going to be very disappointing. Yes. I use the message and leverage it in ways that really do bring in income, and also ways that can serve the kid who's working at Taco Bell or the $700,000 a year CEO.
It's always about. It's interesting that I think it's always about sort of widening your world a little bit more, so that the kid at Taco Bell's got to realize that he's not a minimum wage worker. He's a person who's working a minimum wage job, and that he could
That's right.
side hustles that. But the the $700,000 a year CEO may widen their world a little bit more and realize, oh, they could also be a speaker, or they could also be a writer, or they could also podcast, or they could.
That's right.
There's things they could do that synergize with what they're doing.
I've got a coaching program that's for individuals to help them really get clear on their purpose, their mission, and all that. And it's $48,000 for 1 year, where I see them twice a month. And then 3 times a year, we get together for half a day here at my place in Florida. But, a $48,000 client, it takes a whole lot of book sales to replicate that. Now, again, I'm primarily known as an author, as I want to be. I love writing. There's nothing I love more than writing. But when you really create an economic model, there's so many ways that you can do things that, again, share that message of hope and encouragement with people at various levels.
Love that. Yeah, I'm reminded of Gary Vaynerchuk's business model, which is he writes books that is not where he gets his money from.
Sure.
And then he gives talks to people he's not selling anything to, so that the CMO of Nike will see him and be like, oh, I've heard of this guy, or my son loves this guy. I'm going to go check him out, because that's where he actually makes his money, is with these blue chip clients. But he builds the credibility to work with the blue chip clients through all that, which sounds like what you're doing by having the book and the $7 course and the free podcast and all that. That's why someone will pay you $48,000.
That's right. And as an author, Michael, there's nothing that elevates your credibility like having a book. I mean, you can write it tonight and go to Kinko's tomorrow and print off copies. It'll still elevate your credibility more than having a PhD behind your name.
Yep.
There's just something about that. And speakers certainly understand that. Having a book at the back of the room, you can speak for free and make $5,000 from your book sales at the back of the room. So they go together. It's not an either or, it's a both and.
Yeah. And I feel like for a lot of people, being an author is like, they see it as a huge, like, oh, I don't know if I could be an author. I don't know enough. I don't know how to write. And these, as a friend of mine pointed out to me, which is why I wrote a book, if you can put 24 pages together, which I think is 6,000 words, you can be published on Kindle Direct Publishing and have a book, ISBN number, the whole thing. Apparently someone can look at that number and they'll know it's Kindle Direct Publishing and not a professional publishing house. But who cares? Sure. You wrote a book.
The lines are pretty blurred at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, the big traditional publishers don't have the leverage that they once had.
Yep.
Anybody can get in the game. Now you have to do something that has value and make sure it's done well.
Yep.
Don't just put a piece of garbage out there and expect it to do anything. But if you just take care, do something with excellence, there are no barriers to getting in the game.
Definitely. Yeah. And one thing I found with podcasts is powerful is that you can document your journey. So you don't have to be an expert. I use my podcast to interview people who knew way more than I did, and basically like, hey, come on my podcast, tell me your story, tell me all your secrets, and coach me. And everyone's like, yeah, sure. I'd love to do that. And I think people don't realize, like, they don't have to have gotten to the top of the mountain. They just have to talk to people who are higher up the mountain.
I talked to another fellow podcaster recently, gal who's done really, really well. And I kidded her. I said, she's gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of coaching for free by simply interviewing people who are at higher levels of success. I mean, what a great way to do it. I love it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic, and that's one thing I found. I think this is a great lesson too for people who are struggling, not knowing what to do, is that successful people I've found are very generous with their advice, their knowledge, their connections. If somebody can get into a conversation with them, and you seem like you're probably this way, if you were to run into someone and they'd be like, I work at Taco Bell and I can't do anything else, I feel like you'd probably take 10 minutes and try to point them in the right direction. You wouldn't be like, oh, go buy my course.
Oh, no, I love those conversations. They pop up every day.
Yeah,
absolutely. Got guys here right now doing tile work in my house. We've had some marvelous conversations in the last 3 weeks as they're here. I just love talking to these guys and helping them expand their vision for what's possible.
Are those the tiles that were stuck in Spain?
Yes.
You talked about the podcast.
They finally arrived. Talk about supply chain challenges. They finally arrived from Spain. They were able to get from the manufacturing plant to the port when the
Mhm.
trucker strike loosened up a little bit. And now they're here, and we're way behind schedule, but that's okay. It's looking beautiful, and I'm
Awesome.
thrilled to have guys who enjoy doing that kind of work.
It's all about adapting. So what are you seeing that are some new? I'm going to ask two questions. One's going to be challenges. One's going to be opportunities. But I'll start with the challenges. What are some of the new challenges that you're hearing about in the last 2 years? In the pandemic times, challenges that you're hearing about now that you weren't hearing about before that.
One of the big challenges is for anybody who has a company where they need workers. That really is a challenge. We've heard
Mhm.
about the Great Resignation, and a whole lot of people are making moves. We know that it's harder to keep
Yep.
people, but
That's
historically, we
because
have
people
to
keep finding
admit,
your website and learning how to get out their job.
I mean, we have to admit there's been a lot of abuse of people because
Mhm.
companies thought they could get away with it.
Yeah.
It's the attitude, if you don't like it, hey, go somewhere else because we'll just replace you. Well, that's not true anymore. And those people who were fearful prior to the pandemic really hunkered down, thought, well, this job is crappy, but at least I got a job. I better stay here. Then we went through the pandemic. It's like, wow, we made it. We survived. We didn't fall off the edge of a cliff.
Mhm.
So it's made the unknown a little more comfortable. And so a lot of people are saying, instead of just settling for this because it's okay, I'm more comfortable exploring something, even if it's unknown and unpredictable. What that means then is the companies are really having to hustle to get people to come and to stay. And it's not just about paying them more. We have restaurants here near where I live that are, paying $25 an hour to just people waiting tables or washing dishes.
Mhm.
Even that is not enough. There has to be a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. So that's a struggle.
Mhm.
So that's an unexpected struggle that companies are dealing with.
Yeah.
When it comes to individuals, there really aren't a whole lot of barriers. I mean, there's so many opportunities that have leveled the playing field. You
Mhm.
don't need a big fancy office. You don't need a lot of money. You don't need fancy technology. If you get an iPhone, you can be in business this afternoon.
Yes. That is definitely true. Like it cost me almost nothing to build this fancy office
There you go.
because it's a
Yeah.
green piece of vinyl hanging from the wall and computer technology. Yeah, totally true. So along those lines, what are some of the new opportunities that you're seeing that you're hearing people are finding since the pandemic?
One of those is in the knowledge space, where if you have a message, if you have a personal experience that where you've learned from that and some principles that are applicable to other people, you can position yourself. You can be a speaker. It's simply called the civic organizations in your community. I mean,
Mhm.
I've probably spoken at, I have no idea how many Rotary clubs. They're looking for speakers every week to have
Mhm.
something interesting to share with their audience. If you've got a 22-minute presentation you can do that really is entertaining and
Mhm.
informational, you can practice speaking. In that audience, I don't know when I've ever spoken to a Rotary Club where I didn't have some kind of follow-up. I don't go in there to sell anything, don't go in there to promote anything, but inevitably, one time I had a company contact me. Their CEO, 37 years old, went down in a single engine plane and killed him unexpectedly. He had no succession plan, and they contacted me to help them find and screen for a new CEO. I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do that. It's a very profitable kind of engagement. I said, what made you call me? The guy said, 3 years ago, you spoke to our Kiwanis Club, in
Mm.
Hendersonville, Tennessee. I said, you got to be kidding me. And it was just that top of mind positioning that you can get from that. So there's so many ways to get in the game. But also, well, I'll give you a quick example, Michael. I just realized every morning walking, it's rare that I don't see an armadillo here where I live in Florida. Well, they're cute. They're kind of funky little animals. But a week ago, I discovered, there's some, it's kind of messed up around these bushes here. I think something's going on here. And sure enough, look behind the bush, right up next to my house, and there's a burrow. I thought, oh man, there's armadillos here. Well, if I just do things to chase them away, they're going to go to my neighbor's yard. I hate to do that. There are ways to get rid of them that aren't really pleasant. My granddaughters would not be approving of me doing that. So I called a wildlife services. They came out, set a trap, $199.95 to set a trap. Just a wooden box, nothing fancy about it at all. Just a wooden box that smells like armadillos. Next morning, sure enough, armadillo in there. Boom, I called them. They came out, picked him up, $99.95. They reset the trap. I said, what do you mean? Is there going to be more? Well, there could be. Next morning, another one. Boom, they come and take him out. The next morning, another one. They've taken away 3. Now do the math on that. 195, 199.95 to set the trap, 99.95 for each one. I paid them $500. What did they have? A pickup truck and a box in the back of it. I mean, what an easy business. And do you need a college degree? Did I screen their resume or ask about their academic credentials? Heavens no. They just are doing something that's a very, very profitable business for them by addressing the needs of people like me who live in houses.
Yep. Yeah.
But there's so many things like that.
Yeah.
You can just find an idea and execute on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's totally a matter of thinking about what are those ideas, getting outside of the box. I think it's a great analogy too, because I think the employment world puts out a box that smells like job, and you walk into it and ka-chunk. And then they put you in the pickup truck and off to the office you go, and you trap yourself in it, which you don't realize the door's open the whole time.
Oh my.
You don't know you can walk out.
That's right.
So yeah, it's realizing, because and that was a big transition for me in the pandemic. I said, I'm done with other people's jobs. I may be a contractor for someone, I may be a client for someone, or someone may be a client, but I'm not going to take on someone else's role completely and trust their plan for me. Again, once I did that, opportunities presented themselves. And even if, I said I drove Uber for a while, but that's me. At any moment, I can be like, I don't feel like driving this anymore. Boop. Or, I don't like this app. I'm going to drive Lyft now. Boop.
The guy is here laying tile. We already referenced him. He's right on the other side of my door here, laying tile, doing beautiful work. Well, I paid for the tile. He just gets paid for the installation.
Yep.
We agreed on $20,000. Now, this is the 3rd week that he's been here, and he's just finishing things up. That's not too shabby.
Yeah.
Now, there again, he's actually came from Poland. So he has a broken English accent. Where's he going to go and get a job that pays that kind of money? It's going to be really tough. But for him to just learn how to do something, I mean, you can learn. I'm not going to guess what it takes, but I would suspect that in a good week of training, you can learn what you need to know about doing that.
Yeah.
And then just doing that kind of work, honorable work, everybody oohs and ahs over what you did. I mean, how cool is that?
Absolutely.
And the ideas are just endless.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend earlier today, and she does, the work that she thinks she can get a job in. But as we're talking, she's got skills of an interior designer. She doesn't have credentials. She hasn't been to school for it. She doesn't have a portfolio, but she can look at a room and then go on Facebook Marketplace and be like, oh, this chair would fit and this decoration would fit. But she was thinking, until we talked, just thinking, but I don't have the credentials. No one will pay me for that. I don't have a website. I don't have this. I don't have that. And then and I was even like prompting her to it. She just starts going, and she's, but I guess I'd thought about doing it for free for some people to build a portfolio. And I'd thought about, putting it out there and seeing, but she'd never done it. And I just sort of kept nudging. I'm like, and now hopefully she's now motivated to actually put it out there to, who doesn't want to get some design help for free in exchange for some photos being taken and being shared.
Sure. And she doesn't need to do that very long for free.
Right.
If she could put that out there as a service and have people take her up on it. I mean, people aren't going to do long background checks and big 5-year portfolio. Just wow them with what it is and give a couple examples of how you pull things together. I realized that the guys who mow our grass, we moved fairly recently, and the guys who mow the grass do a great job. They're really, really good guys, but they're not horticulturists. I want a place that just blows your socks off when you come by in terms of the flowers and the foliage and everything we've got. So I realized these guys, it's not their area of expertise. And I put a little note out on Facebook Marketplace for a yard beauty manager. I had 12 people respond instantly. I interviewed personally 4 of them right here on our property, selected a young guy. He's my yard beauty manager. I want him to take care of every weed, but I want him to plant things, fertilize, whatever he needs. And it's $35 an hour. I mean, that's what he's rated. I said, sure, that's fine. He can come and go at will. It's not locked in. He doesn't have to be here at 8 o'clock. He just does what needs to be done to keep my yard looking like I want it to look. Again, I mean, what if you had 10 people where you were doing that?
Yep.
And you did put in 40 hours a week. Again, you can't replicate that by just going to get a job, but it's not complicated. You just have to recognize, what is it that I have that's of value? And the irony, Michael, is that I talk to so many people who are going to jobs. Yeah, I got a note yesterday from a guy that I'll address in my podcast where he said, every day I have this sinking depression in the pit of my stomach going to work. Now, if that's true, he cannot be doing his best work. It's just absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
The company is not getting great work. Nobody's winning in that scenario. Stop that. Don't do that. Nobody's being done any favors.
Yeah.
Stop that. But you've just got to make the decision that you aren't going to just capitulate to that. Yeah, I'll be the armadillo in a box. But there's got to be something that you can do that has value. And a lot of people feel like, I didn't go to college. It doesn't matter. There's got to be something that is your zone of genius, something you know about, you understand that most people don't, and that has value.
Absolutely. Well, and I bet your yard beauty manager, I don't know if you're the first client he's had or not, but I'm sure the first time when he said $35 an hour and they said, sure, he was like, wait, what? Because
the funny thing is, I think I was his first client ever.
So he was probably making 20 something doing something far worse. And he was probably sweating me and like, I don't know if maybe I should say 20. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say 35. And you were like,
and I said, fine. And here's the funny thing.
Yeah, I was talking to a woman who owns a cleaning company, and because my wife was telling me all the things she needs to get done, and I'm like, with your skill set now that you're running your business and going to be in my business, you should not be cleaning bathrooms. We can hire someone to do that. So I'm talking to my friend who owns a cleaning company, and I'm asking, I just want a ballpark. Like, are we talking $200 a month, $500, $1,000? What's the ballpark? And of course, she's used to people who are nickel and diming. She's like, well, I don't want to commit. It's about this number, and came out to $400 a month. They'll come out twice a week, clean the bathrooms, kitchen, vacuum the floor. And she said that. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable. Once the finances settle out and I can plug that in, then I'll definitely want to do that. Because to where I am now, $400 a month for my wife to not have to spend any time, energy, or time or energy even thinking about those parts of the house, totally worth it.
Yeah.
So it's about, as I was saying before, it's find the people who will hear your number and be like, sure.
Yep.
And avoid your friends who are like, no one's going to pay you $400 no one will pay you $35 an hour to do their gardening. That's crazy. Well, friends.
The funny thing about my yard beauty manager is he's never left my cul-de-sac because the neighbors saw what he's doing. It's like, geez, I don't want to be outshone by Dan. Come do this. And he's never left. There are 7 houses on our cul-de-sac. He's never left here because immediately everybody else said, oh, I want Gabe. His name is Gabe. I want Gabe, to do in my yard what he's doing in yours. So it just, his work just spoke for itself and just expanded. There was his marketing tool.
Yep. There it is. Yeah. You don't have to build $1 million business. You can build a business that pays your bills, and you're in a great place. Well, this has been amazing. We are 33 minutes into our 25-minute show. So that's a great thing about being online. Nobody stops us from going over. So I'll go into the show afterward. But so 48days.com I assume that is the home base for all the things you have, including your podcast.
Absolutely. Okay. It is. Thank you for sharing that. Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, definitely. If any of this has resonated with you in the audience, definitely check out 48days.com. Check out the podcast. There's some great stuff there, and really focused on the meaning stuff. And if I can compare you to another large podcaster, I actually liked your show better than Dave Ramsey's show. Because you got more into the meaning. He focused just on the numbers, like how much will you make and how many dollars, and you really got into the meaning and purpose and joy. So, when I started getting more into coaching, I started listening to his less. I'm like, but you're just talking numbers. It's not about meaning. And then I listened to yours. I'm like, this will fill that Dave Ramsey niche that I haven't been listening to in a while.
Hey, well, cool. I won't tell him that. Dave has done the forward to all my books.
Okay, yeah, you don't show him this part of this interview.
We've been friends for years, but I'm glad that it compliments.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But no, I love it. So glad to have you on here, and stick around after I hit the red button, and I want to talk to you for a minute afterwards. So thanks for being on.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael.